Welcome. I'm Nina Gryphon, and this is the Astrology and Magic channel. Today we'll talk about the astrology of week 3 of March 2025. First off, I'd like to say thank you to all of my patrons. I appreciate all of your support. If you would like to become a patron, you can go to patreon.com/Nina Gryphon. At the highest tier of the Patreon, you can get access to my monthly Magical Elections ebook, which teaches you how and when to make astrological talismans. On March 17th, the Sun will conjoin the North Node at 27 Pisces. And on March 19th, the Sun will conjoin Neptune at 29 Pisces. Really, these two transits should be taken together. This is because as the various faster planets conjoin the North Node and Neptune at the end of Pisces, they are going to act together in a single influence. Now, the North Node in particular tends to bring illusion and a plunging into the realm of Maya, the unreal nature of the cosmos, whose role is simultaneously to reveal the spiritual content of matter, but also to veil and obscure it. As we saw with Venus and Mercury crossing these degrees in the last month or so, the tendency is for us all to overinterpret events and blow them out of proportion, which is very typical for the North Node. And then, when nothing major happens, we sort of just blithely go on forgetting all the intense emotion that we experienced over something that has now turned out to be completely insignificant. So my advice for this week would be to avoid reacting strongly to everything and instead say to yourself, I can always panic later. It doesn't mean that we're unconcerned about what's happening, but rather recognize that outsized reaction is typical for the North Node and rarely justified. March 20th, the Sun will enter Aries. This is the Aries ingress, the moment the Sun enters the first degree of the first sign, and astrologically, symbolically, the beginning of the real new year. It is also the first day of spring in the Northern Hemisphere. We can set this chart for anywhere in the world to get a sense of how the coming 12 months will play out in that location. Typically, we set it for the capital of a country or a state to see how that nation will fare. So here's this year's Aries ingress set for Washington, D.C., but I'll cover a few common themes that are applicable the world over. The only thing that will be different when we set this for various locations are the house positions of the planets and, of course, the different house cusps. So in DC, we will have 8 Aquarius rising, and its ruler will be Saturn in Pisces, a planet of contraction, worry, and fear. He conjoins the North Node and Neptune in Pisces, emphasizing the confused and, frankly, illusory nature of this fear. This feels like a lot of shadow boxing and not really understanding what is going on, causing a great deal of anxiety and imaginary problems this year. You'll also notice that this ingress has both Mercury and Venus conjoined, while both are retrograde, which adds a more non-standard, chaotic energy to the entire upcoming year. I think that we will see a lot of bold moves being made because Venus and Mercury are in Aries, but it'll be followed by retractions and changes of direction since they're retrograde. Note that both planets are also combust within 8.5 degrees of the Sun, and combust planets tend to lose their heads. There could also be a great deal of this back and forth activity behind the scenes, as combust planets cannot be seen due to the Sun's glare. The energy of this Aries ingress is quite active and fiery thanks to the Moon in Sagittarius, trine the Sun, Venus, and Mercury in Aries, and opposing Jupiter. This Aries ingress doesn't have so much of a warlike posture, but it's very scattershot, with lots of heat and, frankly, not too much light. March 22nd, the Sun will conjoin Venus retrograde at 2 Aries. This is the inferior conjunction of the Sun with Venus, and the midpoint of Venus's retrograde cycle this year. Venus has been heating up and intensifying in her influence since she got within about 8 degrees of the Sun around March 16th. There's something that happens to planets when they're combust, and I've observed it with Venus retrograde. While she is combust, her significations become very intense, leading to powerful feelings and renegotiations of Venusian matters. People just get very, very invested in their views around whatever is Venusian. So sometimes this can actually manifest paradoxically in antisocial and disruptive ways. So now is a good time to be aware of our own biases and filters, knowing that Venus may be clouding your own judgment and giving rise to powerful feelings. Symbolically, Venus and the Sun conjoining represent the return of a woman to her home after having left it. So it is a moment of reconciliation or potential reconciliation. Now that may or may not happen literally in our lives, but the Sun-Venus inferior conjunction presents an opportunity to reconcile 2 opposing views or parties. Thanks for watching. I'm Nina Gryphon, and this is the Astrology and Magic channel.